Hello, my name is Sue Breithaupt, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and health educator in the Valley Hospital's Department of Community Health and Community Benefit. Today I'm here to talk about the coronavirus or COVID-19 and how we can better cope with this very challenging situation. The unprecedented coronavirus pandemic has caused and continues to cause fear and anxiety across the country and all over the world. Our area has especially been overwhelmed with the virus and its aftermath, and most everyone knows someone who has been affected by the crisis. Life as we knew it changed, it seemed overnight, and at this time it doesn't appear that things will return to normal, completely normal, anytime soon. Many are experiencing increased stress characterized by chronic worry, insomnia, irritability, problems with concentration, and feelings of loss and grief. However, this stress-filled period in our history has also highlighted the incredible resilience and strength of so many people. Some even report an improved sense of well-being in recent weeks. The following are some responses to this pandemic that can reduce your stress level and assist you to improve your coping. First of all, let's talk about coping. People who even think about these things, who even consider, how can I make my life, my internal life better, emotionally and mentally, even people that just consider that and ways to go about it, actually live longer than other people who do not, approximately 7.5 years longer. So it's great that you're listening to this and considering how to improve your coping. So I like to think of things I call the 3 A's in terms of managing an issue or problem. And those 3 A's are awareness, acceptance, and action. What do I mean by this? Well, first of all, awareness, a lot of times we're not even aware that we have a problem or an issue. All of a sudden we don't feel physically well, we feel much more anxious, we're much more upset, road rage, we have road rage, sometimes walk rage, and we have no idea what's going on. But just simply being aware of a situation, how it affects you, is incredibly important. It's important to face what is going on and do away with the denial. Escape, of course, may help at times, but if you don't deal with things, they often deal with you. So for instance, I'm working with people, initially people would say, well, I'm really not affected. It's not a big deal, COVID, what's happening. But after a while, they reported feelings of anxiety, not being able to sleep, actually some grief, very teary, again, much more irritable and having difficulty focusing. And at that point, I was able to point out to them, this is a huge thing that's going on for us in our world. COVID-19 is not only frightening that we might get sick, but it's affecting how we function. Once they were aware of that, they felt better. They knew that there was a reason for their discomfort. The next A, which is acceptance, is realizing basically what we can and cannot change. And right now, we cannot change the fact that we have COVID-19 in our world. We can't change how it happened, and we can't change how quickly it's going to go away. But what we can do is we can accept what's going on. And it doesn't mean we like this situation. Prior to acceptance is a host of unpleasant feelings. But acceptance is key. This is the way it is right now, and yes, we can do certain things to manage it, which leads me to the 3rd A, which is action. Once we are aware of a problem and accept it, then we can take action. And today we're here to talk about those actions. Okay. How can we respond versus react? That's the big question. For an example, sometimes if you're with somebody and they are rude to you, or a family member is, you don't like what they say, of course we want to snap right back. We want to react. But if you think about those situations, when we take a deep breath and we simply respond, that communication can go much differently, and usually it's much more manageable. All right? So one of the first things that we can do, as I said before, is to simply face the feelings. Face the situation and the feelings that this situation is bringing up for many of us. In the beginning, I remember about 3 weeks into this, I was feeling very, very teary one day, and my stomach hurt, and I just couldn't seem to I felt like I had no energy and I was just pretty down. It was a dreary day. I thought it might be that. But then I read something about COVID-19 grief, and I realized I was reacting, I was having feelings about this very difficult situation. At that point, I had a friend of mine had lost her husband. I knew of people who were very sick, and I know that in our hospital, we were losing many people, and the hospital was packed with people. And also, we couldn't do what we usually would do. I didn't know what was going on, and then when I realized that I was simply feeling very, very sad and I was grieving, things changed at that point. I had a name for what was going on, and at that point, I could face those feelings. I didn't want to, I didn't like them, but I did. Sometimes just sitting with difficulties and feelings that arise are all you have to do. Very angry at your child or a loved one, we don't like that, it's not pleasant, but if we swallow that anger, very often it comes out and back out in different ways. Perhaps we have road rage that day, or we start to cry and feel very down. Instead, if we just sit there and we feel the feelings associated with what's going on, they pass like a wave. Think about an ocean. The wave comes in and the wave goes back again. This takes some self-reflection and wisdom, but it helps tremendously in managing what's going on in our lives, especially difficult things. Simply being aware of and facing the feelings. It's probably one of the most important things we can do in general. The second thing I want to suggest is we look at how we think about things. Identify thoughts. It's so important. So many of us, myself included, spend a lot of time thinking very negatively about ourselves, about others, about the world in general. We have to be careful about that. I often suggest to people that in the morning, they simply wake up, lie in bed for maybe a few minutes, and just simply be an observer of their thoughts. It actually can be sort of disturbing sometimes, most of the times, because people will start to, a lot of times our thoughts are very pressured in the morning. Or we're thinking about what we have to do, who we have to see, maybe we're upset with this person or this situation. Just being able to observe those thoughts is a great exercise to do, because then you start to get an idea of what's going on inside your mind, because it's not so much what we think, it's not so much what happens to us, it's what we think about it. I remember years ago being in a grocery store. My two daughters, who were absolutely adorable, were 2 and 4. I was in the produce aisle, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. And my daughters, it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and my little girls were yelping and laughing and giggling, and it was cute, but it was really getting on my nerves. I had a lot to do that day, or at least I told myself that, and I was thinking things like, I wish they would stop. Oh, they're so loud. How I would love to be here by myself. I have so much to do. This is so aggravating, and so on and so forth. A woman, probably in her late 80s or 90s, walked over to me. I'll never forget this. She tapped me on the shoulder, and she looked at me, and she said to me, honey, I can tell by the look on your face you're finding these girls very aggravating, but please let me remind you, this goes so fast, and these are precious years. My great-grandchildren are older than your daughters are now. At that moment, I felt such a sense of shame and sadness, and I realized how much my negative thinking was impacting some of the best years of my life with my favorite people. From then on, when I'd be in the kitchen, I'd be preparing dinner or rushing my kids out to get to preschool or go out with friends, I would think to myself, as soon as I started with some of the negative thinking that they're getting on my nerves, I wish I could be on my own, so forth and so forth, I would stop. I would see a stop sign or even a pause sign. I would accept those thoughts, and then I changed my thoughts to, these are some of the best years of my life. These girls are precious. It's just an example, but it was a very powerful one. It really changed my life for the better from then on. So how we think about it, we identify thoughts, we observe those thoughts, we pause, and then we can replace those thoughts. It takes time. This is a practice, but it is life-changing. So even as far as COVID-19 goes, if we say to ourselves, this is going to be forever, this is awful, it's never going to stop, I can't do this, I can't do that, it's fine you have those thoughts, observe them, but maybe we need to see the stop sign and say, you know what, a vaccine will come soon, this too shall pass. It passed back in 1918, 1919. It will pass this time. And you can see from there then on, how your day is much more manageable. Still, another wonderful way to cope, and it is very helpful for many, is simply being grateful, to make a gratitude list. Whatever it is, Duke University recently did a study, and actually the study is ongoing. And what they did is they had people participate, and basically all they did was think of 3 good things a day. They were asked to just journal, whether it be in their phone or in a journal itself, write out 3 good things, whether it be in the morning or in the evening. Well, people had participated in this, and after several months, it was reported by most researchees that their mood improved. In fact, even a year and a half later, people reported an improved mood. It was the equivalent actually of taking a mild antidepressant. Gratitude is very powerful because, again, it helps us with our thought process and improve them. Just 3 things a day, make it a habit. This is probably one of the most important habits you can take part in. In fact, I love the quote, "The more you recognize and express gratitude for the things you have, the more things you will have to express gratitude for." There's always something to be grateful for. Yet another effective way to manage during this time is to consider getting involved with what we call mindfulness. It's a meditative practice. It was developed by Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, probably around the 60s, 70s. He developed this practice because he was treating patients in pain, and he wasn't seeing much difference after their surgeries or after they were taking medication. So he developed this practice, which really focuses on being in the moment and handling the moment only. Very, very simple, but not easy. And it's an 8-week practice. Most people, there's a lot of mindfulness centers in Valley has one, Ramapo College has one. They're all over, and basically it's an 8-week program, 2 hours a day. There is one 8-hour day as well. And it teaches you how to be in the moment, how to focus on your breath, even how to do things like walk and just focus on your walking. If you think about any situation, any moment, even your worst, was only a moment, and you could get through that moment. And that's really what this is about. There's a wonderful exercise that's affiliated with this called grounding. And basically all that is focusing on each of your senses. So for instance, you start to feel very anxious, and you focus on what you see. Then you focus on what you smell, what you taste, what you're touching, and then finally what you hear. You spend a few seconds on each sense, and a few seconds later, you don't feel as anxious anymore. It's proven to assist with lowering blood pressure and lowering a heart rate and stopping an anxiety attack. And as we know, things can change in a few seconds. Something that seems absolutely catastrophic in 1 second can seem quite different in a few seconds later. So mindfulness is worth looking into. Another thing I want to mention is just being gentle with yourself. This has been a very challenging year in time. Initially, when it was the beginning of COVID and people were home more, we had read a lot about people learning new languages, cleaning out closets, starting these amazing projects. And all of that's wonderful. And if you have the energy and the time, I think that's great. However, just remember to do what you can do. Gauge yourself, and just remember that the basics are enough. For some people, just getting up, taking a shower, and making a couple meals was enough during the early stages of COVID, when we had so many numbers in New Jersey. We were all overwhelmed. It was hard to do anything. Remember the grief I was talking about? A lot of people experiencing that. So just be gentle with yourself. Do what you can do, and celebrate even the smallest accomplishments. Still, another wonderful way to manage is laughter. Laughter is great medicine. I love this quote by Bob Hope. I've seen what a laugh can do. It can transform almost unbearable tears into something bearable, even hopeful. It's very personal, but it is a physiological response that assists with mood. One of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, I worked with a psychiatrist many, many years ago, and he told me to tell my patients this: Before you go to bed, do not watch the news. Do not watch a miserable program or program full of violence and sadness. Watch The Golden Girls, Seinfeld, something funny if you have to watch TV. Read something funny, remember a joke you heard. It'll help you with mood and sleep. I think right now, most always in life, we can find something to laugh about. A lot of things are very funny, and we need to. It's not to be insensitive to the seriousness of things, but laughter can help. Still, another thing we can do, and again, this is very similar to the way we think about things, is changing the perspective, your perspective. I love the books and the term growth mindset. There's a lot of books on the growth mindset. It's wonderful, and it's simply thinking about things in a different way. Instead of perseverating and instead of, thinking about how awful things are, it's just a matter of changing your thinking. It's how we look at it. At this time, for instance, during COVID-19, when we were all in a lot, many people spoke about how much more time they were spending with loved ones, with family members, maybe during some of these social media platforms, Zoom meetings. There's a few of them out there, and FaceTime, and they were taking the time to be with their loved ones more. And some people even reported they've had a positive experience. Some people were introverted and found this time something that they're more comfortable with. It's how we look at things. It has forced us to slow down. It's forced us to look at a lot of things differently, and that's not such a bad thing. It still doesn't mean it's been pleasant, but changing your perspective is powerful. I love this quote. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and love more than you ever know. So even our perspective about ourselves is very important. Yet another thing that many people, having said what I just said, many people have talked about connection being very effective during this time. Whether it be FaceTime or even texting or going on Facebook or another social platform, a lot of people have spent more time connecting. I love the weekly family Zoom meetings that people report about via house party or whatever. But connection's important. Isolation is truly the enemy. Even if you're an introvert, we are human beings designed to need each other and need to be together. Even the old-fashioned phone call, just getting on and hearing someone's voice, I suggest you do it at least a couple times a week. It's helpful and will help make this time much more manageable. Also, being flexible. People who are flexible usually live longer, and they live in a much more quality life. I've worked with elderly people for probably 30 years, and I will say this is an observation, but I would bet there's many studies on this. People who are older, who are open to change, they live much happier lives. If they can be flexible, facing, accepting change, going with the flow, being open to new ideas, being open to new ways to socialize and even work, they fare much better. Even the idea of masks, who wants to wear a mask? Certainly not me, not most people. But right now we have to make this huge change so we can stay safe. And if you can be open to the idea, you're not going to be as aggravated about it as if you are, closed to new ideas. So just that simple idea of being flexible is powerful. People have also spoken about giving and altruism as been wonderful ways of getting them through this difficult time. I know there's been several towns who have organized, meal services for the staff at Valley, and that has been so wonderful for the staff. But many people, I have friends who are in some of these towns, they felt such gratification and sort of a sense of control by doing this. Giving away. Some people talk about shopping for neighbors who can't get out and don't feel safe going to the store. Connecting with older people who are alone all the time. All these gestures can add a lot of meaning and make us feel like we have some control, and usually make people feel really good. So I think that's a wonderful way to cope, is through altruism. Which leads me into saying that there's a lot of people that have used spirituality and deep meaning to cope. A lot of people are asking, what's it all about? Why is this happening? Um, this is, or they've needed their spirituality, which is, and one of the ways we spirituality, is related to religion. Religion is sort of a part of spirituality, and people have turned to those ideas as a way of coping. Turning to a higher power because they've been very overwhelmed. So asking those questions, thinking about your beliefs, your values, what are the life lessons? Turning to a higher power or whatever your religious, your religious deity is. Even through meditation, like mindfulness meditation, yoga, all these things have become, for many people, much more important and very effective ways to get through this tough time. Then there's the more simple things. Just simply exercising can be so effective. A lot of people prefer the terms movement than exercise. That's that E word that your doctor tells you to do all the time. But whatever kind of movement you engage in, moving your body helps us to kind of get those happy hormones, the endorphins, from one part of your body to your brain, to the right parts of your brain, so that you feel better. Exercise can be yoga. Exercise can be simply taking a walk, dancing, just whatever you like to do, holding 2 soup cans in your hands and lifting those cans, for 15 minutes a day. In fact, if you can find an exercise or something you like and do that 20 minutes a day, 3 to 4 times a week, it is the equivalent of taking a mild antidepressant. And if you're exercising more, then up the ante a bit. But it's really effective. People have also, another thing, people have also engaged in learning about things. The power of curiosity. Of course, it's been helpful to knowledge is power, and a lot of people have learned a lot about our bodies and this virus and what we can do, and I think that's very, very important. But even if you're learning a new language, or you used to do one crossword puzzle that was simple, but you want to increase your knowledge, so you start doing a New York Times crossword puzzle. Learning it helps our brain stay strong. So the power of curiosity is very, very powerful. Take this time to discover talents and increase knowledge. If you have the time, again, do what you can do, but that's a great way to cope. Other things, writing things out, journaling, I'm a big one for that. I worked with a woman who had severe insomnia for years, and we worked together, and after a bit, we were trying to figure out what would help her sleep, and she started journaling before she went to bed. It was a great way for her to vent. She was very frustrated with someone in her life, her daughter-in-law, and she often would be very anxious about what she had to do the next day. So she called it her God box or her God journal, and she would write down all that happened, all that she was upset about, what she had to do for the next day, and then she would close up her journal and she'd give it to her higher power or God. It helps us get those obsessive thoughts out of our minds. And it also helped, and it has to do with how we speak to ourselves. Thinking about things we're grateful for, thinking about things that we want to do and we will do. It'll send very powerful messages to our brain. And it can be a creative process also. If you need extra support, I want to mention to you, many people are getting extra support, whether it be through virtual support groups or virtual counseling, or going to their priest, rabbi, or pastor, or just speaking to a very trusted friend about what's on your mind. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very powerful to be able to share and to get some objective information about what we're going through. And so what? This has been hard. If you need that extra help, there's nothing wrong with that. I know some people who have gone to their primary physician and gotten some medication to cope. It's all right. You're not alone. There's so many people doing that. So I've mentioned many things here, and I can also talk about coloring, yoga, creating, writing your memoirs. Whatever it is, just remember, habits take about 2 to 3 weeks to develop. Just work on 1 or 2 things a week. Maybe this week you get yourself a journal, or you write in your phone the 3 things you're grateful for. Or maybe you start walking 20 minutes, 15 minutes today, and you do 20 minutes on the next, 2 days later, and then add 5 more minutes on it the day after that. But habits take a couple weeks to really take. So take your time, but do something, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. There's a lot of things we've talked about. Hope you take advantage of these things. Remember that what Mr. Rogers' mother said to him during the toughest times in his life, or during crisis. Look to the helpers. There's a lot of people in our world who have done some amazing things around this virus. All the health professionals, counselors, leaders. Look to those people. Let them soothe you. I know children look to their parents too, and it's just a way of getting through. So think about some of these ideas. Take what you like and leave the rest, but I hope you take a couple of things, and I hope you stick with it. Stay safe, and please take good care, and thank you for your time.